The wine caught the light wrong. It was supposed to be deep red, rich and dark, the color of dried cherries and old wood. Instead, as the crystal glass settled on the table, the liquid flashed something else beneath the red. A faint blue shimmer. So brief that anyone not watching closely would have missed it. Elena Cross did not miss it. She sat on the left side of the long mahogany table inside Echelon Prime, one of the most expensive private dining restaurants in the city. The room was quiet in the way only money could buy. Soft jazz hummed from hidden speakers. White linen covered the table. Heavy curtains blocked out the city lights. A chandelier above them cast a warm glow that made everything look calm, polished, perfect. From the outside, it looked like a powerful family enjoying a private dinner. From the inside, Elena felt the familiar pressure in her chest. The kind that came from holding her breath for too long. Across from her, at the center of the table, sat her husband, Kang Junseo. To the world, he was a respected businessman. To those who knew better, he was the head of the Kang Syndicate, a man who controlled shipping routes, ports, and people. He wore a black tailored suit, sharp and expensive. His phone rested in his hand, his thumb scrolling as his eyes moved over numbers and messages. He was talking about containers, routes, delays. He did not look at Elena. To his right sat his younger brother, Kang Min-tae. He wore a navy suit, but it fit tighter than it should have, as if he had lost weight recently. His jaw was clenched. A thin line of sweat gathered at his temple, even though the room was cool. Min-tae's fingers tapped lightly against the table. Once, twice, 3 times. Then they stopped. Elena noticed that too. At the far end of the table sat Madame Han Sukja, Junseo's mother. Her silver hair was pulled back neatly. Her burgundy jacket was perfectly pressed. She sat upright, hands folded, eyes sharp and still. Madame Han was not on her phone. She was watching everything. The sommelier approached quietly, moving with practiced grace. His name tag read Daniel Reyes. He bowed slightly before setting the wine down. "My apologies for the delay, Mr. Kang," he said smoothly. The apology was too careful, too polished. Elena felt something tighten inside her. The glass was placed directly in front of Junseo. He did not acknowledge it. He kept talking. "If the shipment clears by Tuesday, we'll be ahead of schedule," Junseo said, eyes still on his phone. "That gives us leverage for the next negotiation." Min-tae swallowed. Elena watched the wine again. The green shimmer was still there, faint but unmistakable when the light hit it just right. She leaned back slightly in her chair, her heart beginning to beat faster. Not from panic, but from recognition. She had learned to recognize patterns. She had learned because no one else did. Elena thought of the way Min-tae's fingers had tapped. The way his eyes kept flicking toward the glass. The way the sommelier's apology had come half a second too late. Her mind moved quickly. Poison. Not at a club. Not in a back room. Not during a deal gone wrong. At a family dinner. Which meant someone close. Someone trusted. Someone sitting at this table. Her gaze drifted to Junseo's hand. It was moving toward the glass. Slowly. Casually. For seconds. That was all she had. For seconds to decide what kind of woman she was going to be. Option 1, speak. Warn him. Say something. Cause a scene. She imagined it clearly. Junseo frowning. Telling her she was being dramatic. Telling her she didn't understand how these dinners worked. Telling her, gently but firmly, to let the men handle things. He had said it before. Option 2, do nothing. Let him drink. Let the poison do its work. Become a widow. Raise their children alone. Be pitted. Be praised. Be alone in a different way. Option 3 came to her without logic. Without planning. Without fear. "I want to try your selection," Elena said softly. Her voice was calm. Almost polite. Junseo did not pause. Did not look at her. Did not even register that she had spoken. Elena reached across the table. 19 inches. That distance felt longer than it should have. Her fingers closed around the stem of the glass. The crystal was cool against her skin. The wine shifted inside, catching the light again. Green beneath red. She lifted it. Min-tae's breath caught. Madame Han's eyes narrowed. Elena brought the glass to her lips. The smell hit first. Sharp. Metallic. Wrong. She drank anyway. The liquid burned her throat, not like alcohol, but like fire. Her stomach twisted violently. The taste spread fast, bitter and chemical. Her chest tightened. Her heart stumbled, then raced. Her hand flew to her chest, not for attention, not for drama, but because her body demanded it. The napkin slid from her lap onto the table. Wine spilled onto it, spreading dark and ugly across the white linen. Juncio was still talking. He had not noticed. Elena's vision blurred slightly. The chandelier above fractured, its light splitting into strange shapes. Her breathing grew shallow. Madame Han moved first. She did not shout. She did not stand. She simply set her own glass down. Her eyes moved from Elena to the stained napkin to Minte's face, now pale and shaking. "Elena," Madame Han said quietly. Juncio turned. "What?" he asked, distracted. Then he saw his wife. Her posture had changed. Her face had lost color. One hand clutched her chest, the other rested weakly on the table. "Elena," he said again. She did not answer. Her body leaned sideways as if gravity had suddenly increased. Juncio stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "What's wrong?" he demanded. Madame Han's voice cut through the room, calm and deadly. The wine was poisoned. The word landed like a stone. Juncio froze. Minte's knees buckled slightly as he gripped the table. Elena felt herself slipping, the edges of the room fading. Through the pain, through the fear, another feeling rose quietly inside her. Relief. For the first time in years, everyone was looking at her. For the first time, she mattered enough to stop the room. Her last clear thought before the darkness crept in was simple and terrifying. "At least now they see me." And then the world went dim. Elena Cross had been invisible long before the poison touched her lips. For 7 years, she had learned how to disappear without leaving the room. It was a quiet skill, one she never meant to master. It began slowly, so slowly she did not notice it happening. A missed conversation here. A forgotten question there. A nod instead of eye contact. A thank you that never came because no one remembered to say it. 7 years married to Kong Juncio. 7 years of learning how to make herself small. She had once been loud, curious, opinionated. She used to ask questions and expect answers. She used to believe that marriage meant partnership, that love meant being seen. Somewhere along the way, those beliefs faded, replaced by routines and responsibilities that filled her days but emptied her. Most mornings began the same way. Elena woke before the sun. She packed lunches, tied shoes, checked backpacks, and reminded herself to breathe while Leah and Noah argued over cereal bowls. Her twins were 5 years old now, bright and full of life. Leah liked her clothes arranged just right, her hair tied neatly. Noah needed warnings before every transition, or he melted down into tears. Elena knew all of this. She knew which cup Leah preferred, which blanket Noah needed to sleep, which words calmed them when nightmares crept in. She handled school forms, doctor appointments, birthday parties, and playdates. She raised them mostly alone, even though she was married. Juncio was often gone. When he was home, he was present in body, but absent in every other way. His phone was always nearby, his mind always elsewhere. Conversations with him felt like speaking to someone standing behind glass. "How was your day?" she would ask. "Busy," he would reply. That was usually the end. Between caring for the twins and managing the house, Elena became something else too. A buffer. Madame Han Sukja was traditional, sharp-tongued, and demanding. She believed respect came from silence and endurance. She questioned Juncio's modern choices, his Western ways, his business direction. When her words cut too deep, Elena softened them. When her son's patience ran thin, Elena smoothed things over. She translated emotions that neither of them wanted to face. She kept the peace. No one thanked her for it. At the table that night at Echelon Prime, Elena sat straight-backed, hands folded in her lap. Her pale dress was expensive, chosen by someone else, purchased without her input. She looked composed, calm, obedient. She felt empty. Across from her, Juncio spoke the language he understood best. Numbers, routes, schedules, risks. He discussed syndicate logistics with ease, confidence, authority. Elena listened. She always listened, because listening was safe. But she also noticed things. She noticed the numbers that did not add up weeks ago. Small discrepancies at first. Slight delays. Payments rerouted through unfamiliar channels. She had asked about them once. Twice. "You don't understand the business," Juncio had said, not unkindly but dismissively. She had not asked again. Tonight she noticed more. Kong Minte sat stiffly to Juncio's right, his smile forced, his eyes restless. He did not speak unless spoken to. His fingers tapped the table in uneven rhythms. When the wine was served, his breathing changed. Elena had seen that look before. Her son Noah wore it when he broke something and waited to see if anyone noticed. Guilt had a rhythm. The sommelier's apology was too smooth. The wine's movement in the glass was too slow. And when the light hit it, it showed its secret. Green. Elena's heart did not race in fear. It slowed in clarity. This was not sudden. This was not random. Someone at this table wanted Juncio dead. She watched his hand move toward the glass. She thought of Leah and Noah. Of the mornings she woke alone. Of the evenings she put the children to bed by herself. Of the questions she answered that were never returned. She thought of how often she had been present while being unseen. She reached for the glass. When she drank, the pain came fast. Sharp. Unforgiving. The burn spread from her throat into her chest like fire trapped under skin. Her heart faltered, then stumbled forward again, uneven and panicked. Her body reacted before her mind could. Her hand pressed against her chest. Her breath shortened. The napkin slipped from her lap and landed on the table, wine soaking into it, turning it a deep, ugly purple. Juncio kept talking. He was explaining timelines. Elena felt the room tilt. Her vision blurred at the edges. Sounds stretched and distorted. She heard her husband's voice, steady and confident, as if nothing had changed. And that was the truth. Nothing had changed. She was still invisible. Her body began to slide sideways in her chair. Her muscles weakened. Her fingers lost strength. Madame Hahn noticed. She always noticed. The older woman's eyes moved quickly from Elena's face to the stained napkin, then to Minte's pale expression. Her gaze sharpened, calculating. Elena saw that look through the haze. She wondered, briefly, what it would feel like to rest. To stop holding everything together. To stop being the quiet strength no one remembered to praise. Her heart stuttered again. She tried to breathe. The table felt farther away now. Her husband's voice sounded distant, like it was coming from another room. And once the shipment clears. Elena. Madame Hahn's voice reached her first. Juncio turned then, irritation flickering across his face. What? He asked. Then he saw her. Her posture had collapsed. Her face was drained of color. Her eyes struggled to focus. Elena, he said again, louder this time. She could not answer. Her body slid forward, and for a moment she felt weightless, suspended between staying and falling. This time, the room stopped. Chairs shifted. Air moved. Silence cut through the conversation like a blade. Juncio stood, his attention finally locked on her. What's wrong? He demanded, confusion turning to alarm. Elena's last clear sight was his face, finally looking at her, really looking at her. It had taken poison to make him notice. Her body gave in, and she fell. Elena Cross did not fully lose consciousness right away. She drifted in and out, like someone sinking beneath water and breaking the surface just long enough to breathe. Sounds came to her in fragments. Voices stretched and blurred. Light fractured into dull shapes. The first clear voice she heard was Madame Han Sukja's. Aconitine. The word cut through the noise with sharp certainty. Elena did not know the name of the poison, but she recognized the tone. It was not panic. It was diagnosis. Madame Han knelt beside her chair, eyes moving with precision. She did not touch Elena yet. She watched her breathing, the slight tremor in her hands, the color draining from her lips. This is aconitine poisoning, Madame Han said again, louder now for the room to hear. The words seemed to freeze everything. Kong Juncio stood over Elena, his hands hovering uselessly in the air, his face tight with disbelief. What are you talking about? He demanded. Poison. That's impossible. Madame Han turned her head slowly. Her eyes locked on Kong Minte. You, she said. It was not a question. Minte staggered back a step as if struck. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His face had gone gray. His hands shook violently. Mother, he began. Madame Han did not let him finish. The wine was meant for your brother, she said calmly. She drank it instead. Juncio's breath left him in a sharp rush. What? He whispered. Elena felt herself being lifted then. Strong arms wrapped around her, firm and urgent. Juncio had finally touched her, not gently, not carefully, but with fear driving every movement. Elena, he said, his voice breaking. Stay with me. Look at me. Her eyes fluttered open briefly. She saw his face above her, distorted by panic. His jaw clenched. His eyes wide and unsteady. She had never seen him like this. Then the darkness crept back in. Madame Han rose to her feet and turned toward Minte without taking her eyes off him. Call Dr. Park Ji-hoon. Now. Tell him it's aconitine. Tell him to come immediately. Min-tae fumbled for his phone. His fingers slipped against the screen. He tried again, hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it. Yes, he said hoarsely into the phone. Yes now. Please. Jun Seo carried Elena away from the table and lowered her carefully to the floor. The hardwood was cold against her back. He slid off his jacket and folded it under her head. He pressed his fingers to her wrist. Her pulse was there, but it was weak, uneven. Elena, he said again. Breathe. Please. She breathed shallow and ragged. The room around them had changed completely. The calm luxury was gone. Chairs had been pushed back. Faces were pale. No one spoke unless spoken to. Madame Han raised her voice once more. No one leaves. No one makes calls except the doctor. This family handles its own. No one argued. Elena drifted again. In the darkness, she felt heat in her chest. A sharp burning that spread slowly, methodically, as if something inside her was being shut down piece by piece. Her heart skipped, then stumbled forward again. She heard Jun Seo counting under his breath. Stay with me, he whispered. Please stay. Time stretched strangely. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt endless. 13 minutes. That was how long it took. 13 minutes of Jun Seo kneeling on the floor, holding his wife, watching her slip further away. 13 minutes of Madame Han standing like stone, her eyes never leaving Min-tae. 13 minutes of guilt, fear, and silence pressing down on the room. When Dr. Park Ji-hoon finally arrived, he moved fast. He carried a black medical bag, worn from years of use. He knelt beside Elena immediately, checking her pupils, her pulse, her breathing. Aconitine, Madame Han said. Dr. Park nodded. I suspected. He worked quickly, and 4 needles slid into Elena's arm. Cool fluid entered her vein. He administered activated charcoal, then medication to stabilize her heart. Elena groaned softly. That's good, Dr. Park said. That means she's still responsive. Jun Seo hovered nearby, his hands clenched into fists. Is she going to live? He asked. Dr. Park did not answer right away. He focused on his work, listening to Elena's chest, watching the monitor he had attached. Minutes passed. Finally, he looked up. She will survive, he said. The room exhaled. She did not consume the full dose, Dr. Park continued. Only a small amount. Enough to cause serious harm, but not enough to be fatal. He turned his gaze to Jun Seo. That glass was meant for you. The words landed heavily. Jun Seo closed his eyes. Madame Han said nothing. She already knew. Elena's breathing began to steady. The burning in her chest dulled slightly, replaced by deep exhaustion. She floated between sleep and wakefulness, aware only of hands holding hers and voices speaking her name. Dr. Park gave instructions quickly. She needs to be moved to Silvercrest Medical Pavilion immediately. They're equipped for monitoring and recovery. She cannot stay here. Jun Seo nodded. Do it. Within minutes, Elena was lifted onto a stretcher. The world tilted again as she was carried out of the private room, past the table she had sat at moments earlier, past the untouched wine glasses. As they moved through the hallway, Elena opened her eyes one last time. She saw Jun Seo walking beside her, his hand gripping hers tightly, as if afraid to let go. For the first time in a long while, he was not looking at his phone. He was looking at her. Then the doors closed, and Elena Cross was taken to Silvercrest Medical Pavilion, alive, but forever changed by the 13 minutes that nearly took her away. Elena Cross healed faster than anyone expected. Her body responded well to treatment. The poison had not damaged her heart or kidneys permanently. The doctors at Hanro Private Care Unit monitored her closely, checking her vitals every few hours, adjusting fluids, making quiet notes on digital tablets. Medically, Dr. Park said on the second morning, she's stable. That word, stable, was repeated often. Physically stable. Blood pressure stable. Heart rhythm stable. No one spoke about what could not be measured. Elena lay propped against crisp white pillows in a private suite designed for discretion. Soft cream walls. Heavy curtains. A window that looked out over a carefully manicured garden meant to feel peaceful. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and flowers from well-wishers she had not asked to see. Her body was resting. Her mind was not. She moved carefully now, deliberately, as if learning how to live inside herself again. Her hands no longer shook, but they felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. She ate when the nurse reminded her. slept when exhaustion finally overtook her. On the third day, Kong Jun-seo came to visit alone. He arrived with white orchids arranged perfectly in a tall glass vase. They were her favorite flowers. He also carried a small blue box, unmistakable even before it was opened. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her. Elena noticed that too. "You're awake," he said, stepping inside. "Yes," she replied calmly. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctors say I'm recovering well." Her voice was steady, polite. The kind of voice she used with teachers, doctors, and strangers. Not the one she used with someone who knew her deeply. Jun-seo set the orchids on the windowsill, adjusting them until they faced the light. He sat in the chair beside her bed, holding the blue box like a script he was waiting to read from. "I should have listened to you," he said finally. Elena turned her head slightly to look at him. "You warned me," he continued, "about the numbers, the discrepancies. You tried to tell me something was wrong, and I dismissed it. I told you that you didn't understand the business." He opened the box and revealed a diamond bracelet. Delicate, expensive, beautiful. "I'm sorry," he said. "I took your judgment for granted." Elena nodded. "Thank you," she said quietly. She accepted the box, admired the bracelet briefly, then placed it on the bedside table next to her water glass. Her movements were careful, restrained. "It's beautiful," she added. Jun-seo waited for something more. It did not come. He leaned forward. "I know this doesn't fix what happened, but I want you to know I appreciate you. Your instincts. Your support." "I understand," Elena said. The conversation felt formal, controlled, like two people discussing a professional mistake rather than a near-death experience. From the corner of the room, Madame Han Sukja observed silently. She had arrived earlier and positioned herself where she could see both of them clearly. She said nothing. She did not interrupt. Her sharp eyes took in every pause, every carefully chosen word, every emotional gap. She saw what her son did not. The apology was real, but it was aimed at the wrong wound. The door opened again, and soft footsteps rushed in. "Mommy!" Leah's voice broke the tension like glass shattering. Elena turned fully now as her twins ran toward the bed. Leah climbed up first, careful but excited. Noah followed, clutching a stuffed dinosaur tightly. "You're awake," Leah said, patting Elena's arm gently. "Daddy said you were sleeping a lot." Elena smiled, and for the first time since the poisoning, the smile reached her eyes. "I'm awake," she said. "I missed you." Noah pressed the dinosaur into her arms. "T-Rex makes people feel better." She held it to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Leah studied her face closely. "Why were you sick?" Elena opened her mouth, then closed it again. The question was simple. The answer was not. "I got very tired," she said instead. Leah frowned. "But you don't look tired." That was when it happened. The tears came suddenly, without warning. Not dramatic sobs. Not loud cries. Just silent tears streaming down Elena's face, one after another, unstoppable. Leah froze. Noah looked confused. "Mommy," Leah asked softly. "Why are you crying?" Elena tried to speak. Tried to smile. Tried to reassure them. She could not. She turned her face away slightly, ashamed of the tears, but they kept falling. Her shoulders trembled. Jun-seo stood up abruptly. "Elena," he said, alarmed. "What's wrong?" She did not answer. Noah climbed closer, patting her arm awkwardly. "It's okay," he said. "T-Rex cries sometimes." That broke her. Elena covered her face with one hand, her body shaking now. Years of held-back emotion pressed forward all at once, too heavy to contain. Jun-seo reached out, uncertain. He placed a hand on her shoulder, then pulled back, unsure what to do. Madame Han moved swiftly. "Children," she said gently. "Let Mommy rest now." "But she's crying," Leah protested. "I know," Madame Han replied. "Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're very tired." She guided the twins away from the bed, promising they would come back soon. Leah glanced over her shoulder, worried. Noah waved his dinosaur once before following his grandmother out. The door closed softly. Silence filled the room. Elena wiped her face slowly, regaining control the way she always did. She took a deep breath, then another. Jun-seo remained standing, helpless. "I don't know what I did wrong," he admitted quietly. Elena looked up at him. Her eyes were red, but clear. "When was the last time," she asked calmly, "that you asked me how I was doing?" He blinked. "I just asked." "No," she interrupted gently. "Not today. Not at the hospital. Before all of this. He searched his memory. Days passed. Weeks. Months. He could not find it. The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Elena nodded once, as if confirming something she already knew. "That's all," she said softly. Juncio sat back down slowly, the diamond bracelet untouched on the table, the orchids bright and useless by the window. Madame Han remained silent in her corner, watching the truth settle where apologies could not reach. And Elena Cross lay back against her pillows, physically healing, emotionally distant, realizing that surviving the poison was only the beginning of what she would have to face. Madame Han Sukja came to the house in the early afternoon, when the light was soft and the neighborhood was quiet. Elena knew she was coming before the doorbell rang. Madame Han never announced visits ahead of time. She arrived when she decided it was necessary, not when it was convenient. Elena was seated on the couch, a folded blanket across her legs, her body still weak from recovery, but strong enough now to move around the house again. The twins were out with the nanny, and the silence felt heavy but intentional. Madame Han entered without ceremony, her presence filling the room in a way that did not require raised voices or sharp words. She placed her handbag neatly on the table and removed her coat with careful movements. "We're going to talk," she said. Elena nodded. She had been waiting for this. Madame Han went into the kitchen and returned with a teapot and 2 cups. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if every action mattered. She poured the tea and handed 1 cup to Elena before sitting across from her, not beside her. Face to face. Equal distance. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Steam rose gently between them. "They're calling you heroic," Madame Han said at last. Elena looked down at her cup. "People like simple stories." "Yes," Madame Han replied. "They do. A devoted wife. A noble sacrifice. A woman who saved her husband without hesitation." Elena's fingers tightened around the porcelain. "That is not the full truth," Madame Han continued. Her tone was calm, not accusing. "And you know it." Elena swallowed. "I did what I had to do," she said quietly. "No," Madame Han said. "You did what someone desperate would do. There is a difference." The words landed gently but firmly. Elena's breath caught. She stared into her tea as if the answer might be waiting there. "I need to know why," Madame Han said. "Not the version for the family. Not the version for my son. The real one." Silence stretched between them. Elena felt it press against her chest, heavy and familiar. She had lived inside silence for years. This one was different. This one demanded truth. "I didn't just drink the poison to save him," Elena said finally. Madame Han did not react. She did not lean forward or interrupt. She simply waited. "I saw it," Elena continued, her voice shaking now. "I knew what it was. I knew what it would do. And yes, part of me thought about Leah and Noah. I thought about what would happen if they lost their father." She paused. "But there was another thought," she whispered. She looked up, meeting Madame Han's eyes. "I thought, at least if I die doing this, it will be over." The room felt smaller. Madame Han remained still. "I've been tired for a long time," Elena said. "Tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. Tired in a way no one notices, because everything still gets done." Her hands trembled slightly as she set the cup down. "For 7 years, I've held everything together. The house, the children, the space between your expectations and your son's decisions. I've disappeared quietly so no one else would have to feel uncomfortable." Her voice cracked. "And in that moment, when I saw the poison, I thought death would be relief." The words fell heavy between them. "I'm ashamed to say it," Elena whispered. "But it's true. For a second, it felt like an exit that wouldn't make me a bad person. Like I could finally rest and still be remembered as someone good." Tears filled her eyes, but she did not wipe them away. "I love my children," she said quickly. "I love them more than anything. That's what makes this worse. Because part of me wanted to leave them. Not because they're not enough, but because I was so empty I didn't know how to keep going." Her breath broke, and the tears came fully now. "What kind of mother thinks like that?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "What kind of woman uses her husband's murder attempt as an excuse to escape her own life?" Madame Han stood then and moved closer, but she did not touch Elena yet. "A human one," she said simply. Elena looked up, startled. "A woman who has been erased slowly," Madame Han continued. "A mother who has been raising children while emotionally alone. A wife who was taught that endurance equals worth." She sat beside Elena now, close but not overwhelming. "You are not weak," Madame Han said. "You are exhausted." Elena collapsed into quiet sobs, the kind that come from deep inside, uncontrolled and raw. Madame Hahn placed a steady hand on her shoulder, grounding her, allowing the tears without trying to stop them. When the crying finally slowed, Madame Hahn poured fresh tea and handed it to her again. "My son thinks you saved him out of devotion," she said. "He thinks his mistake was not trusting your judgment in business." Elena let out a hollow laugh. "That's not the wound." "No," Madame Hahn agreed. "He is apologizing for the wrong betrayal." Elena wiped her face slowly. "If I tell him the truth, he'll see me differently." "He should," Madame Hahn replied. "I don't want him to see me as broken," Elena said. "I don't want to be handled carefully. I don't want pity or fear in his eyes." Madame Hahn's gaze softened slightly. "Do you think being unseen is better than being known?" she asked. Elena did not answer. "This marriage is already broken," Madame Hahn said. "The question is whether it will be rebuilt honestly or preserved with lies and expensive apologies." She stood, smoothing her clothes. "He needs to hear this from you," she said. "Not the heroic story. The true one." Elena's chest tightened. "What if it destroys him?" Madame Hahn turned back at the door. "Then he will finally understand the cost of what he allowed to happen," she said. "And if he cannot carry that truth, then this marriage does not deserve you." She paused. "I will tell him that you have something to say," Madame Hahn added. "I will tell him to listen. What you choose to tell him is up to you." After she left, Elena sat alone in the quiet house. The bracelet lay on the table nearby, catching the light. Beautiful, heavy, meaningless. She stared at it for a long time. Then she closed her eyes and breathed, knowing that the hardest part was still ahead. Not surviving the poison, but surviving the truth. The house was quiet in the way it only ever was after midnight. Elena Cross sat in the small rocking chair beside the twins' bed, her body angled slightly toward the window. Moonlight slipped through the curtains, painting pale shapes across the walls. The soft hum of the night light filled the room, steady and comforting. Leah slept curled on her side, one arm wrapped tightly around her stuffed rabbit. Noah lay sprawled on his back, mouth slightly open, his dinosaur tucked under his chin. Their breathing was slow and even, the kind of peaceful sleep Elena had worked hard to protect. She had sat in that chair hundreds of times before. Tonight felt different. Her hands rested loosely in her lap, but her fingers trembled. Tears slid down her face silently, dripping onto the sleeve of her robe. She did not wipe them away. She did not hurry herself to stop. For years, she had cried quietly in places no one noticed. Laundry rooms, bathrooms, parked cars. Tonight, she let the tears fall where they were. The clock on the dresser glowed faintly. 2:16 a.m. Footsteps approached down the hall. Elena did not turn. Kang Junseo stopped at the doorway. He stood there for a moment, unsure, taking in the sight of his wife sitting in the dark, crying while their children slept peacefully inches away. He did not speak. He remembered his mother's voice from moments earlier, firm and unyielding. "Go to her. Don't fix. Don't explain. Just listen." So he stepped inside and lowered himself to the floor beside the rocking chair. He did not touch her. He did not ask if she was okay. He simply sat there. Minutes passed. The silence was heavy, but not empty. The kind of silence that demands honesty. Finally, he spoke. "My mother said you have something to tell me," Junseo said quietly, "and that I need to listen." Elena's breath hitched. She kept her eyes on Leah's sleeping face. "Everyone keeps saying I was brave," she said softly. "They say I saved you." He nodded but said nothing. "That's not a lie," Elena continued. "But it's not the whole truth." Her hands tightened together. "When I saw the wine, I knew it was poisoned," she said. "I knew what it would do." Junseo's chest tightened. "I thought about the twins," she said. "I thought about what it would mean if they lost you. I didn't want that for them." She paused, swallowing hard. "But there was another thought," she said, her voice breaking. "A terrible one." She finally turned to look at him. "I thought, if I drink this and die, at least it will be over." The words hung in the air. Junseo's face drained of color. "At least I won't have to keep pretending," Elena continued. "At least I'll stop feeling this tired. At least I'll finally matter." Her voice cracked, and tears spilled freely now. "I didn't just risk my life to save yours," she said. "I used your life as an excuse to escape mine." Junseo felt the floor tilt beneath him. Elena looked back at the children. "I love them," she said quickly, urgently. "I love Leah and Noah more than anything. That's what makes this so shameful. Part of me wanted to leave them. Not because they aren't enough. Because I was so invisible that death felt like relief. Her shoulders shook. I was empty, she whispered. So empty that poison felt like mercy. Junseo's hands curled into fists against the carpet. His throat tightened painfully. He had survived threats, betrayals, and violence without flinching. This broke him. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice hoarse. I didn't just fail to see you, he said slowly. I made you want to disappear. Elena turned to him, startled. Do you understand what that means? She asked. Yes, he said, without hesitation. I do. Silence returned. The nightlight hummed. Leah shifted in her sleep and sighed softly. Elena wiped her face, gathering herself. I'm not telling you this so you can apologize, she said. And I don't want promises. He nodded. I don't want gifts, she continued. Or flowers. Or jewelry. I don't want to be thanked or praised. She looked directly at him now. If I stay, she said, it's only if you learn to be here. Not sometimes. Not when it's convenient. I need presence, not performance. He listened. I need you to ask me how I'm doing, she said, and actually wait for the answer. I need you to notice when I'm in the room, to see me before I disappear again. She gestured softly toward the beds. I need you to be a father without scheduling it, a husband without reminders. I need a family, not an organization. Junseo's eyes filled with emotion he did not try to hide. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. I don't know how to undo what I've done. I'm not asking you to fix it, Elena said. I'm asking you to try. Slowly. Badly. Honestly. He nodded. I won't make promises I can't keep, he said. But I will try. Elena studied him for a long moment, searching for something familiar, something real. Okay, she said finally. It was not forgiveness. It was not healing. It was simply permission to begin. They sat there together on the floor at 2:16 a.m., surrounded by the quiet breathing of their children, aware that nothing had been resolved, but that pretending was finally over. And for the first time in 7 years, Elena did not feel completely alone. The next morning did not start with a grand speech or a dramatic promise. It started with silence and confusion. Kang Junseo stood in the kitchen at 6:31 a.m., staring at a carton of eggs as if it contained a code he was supposed to crack. The refrigerator light spilled onto the floor. The house was still half asleep. Outside, the sky was pale, that early morning color that made everything look soft and unfinished. Junseo had run meetings where men were afraid to speak. He had negotiated deals that shifted millions of dollars. He had planned operations down to the second. But he had never made breakfast for his children. He opened the carton. 12 eggs set neatly inside. How many do 5-year-olds eat? He muttered to himself. He took out 4 eggs, then hesitated and added 2 more, as if extra would fix his uncertainty. He grabbed a pan from the cabinet without thinking. Cast iron. Heavy. The wrong pan, but he did not know that yet. From the doorway, Elena watched. She was still in her robe, hair loose, face tired. Every instinct in her screamed to step in. She could already see the mistakes before they happened. The pan would stick. The heat would be too high. The eggs would burn. She could fix it in 10 seconds. That was what she had done for 7 years. Fix. Smooth. Save. Cover. But last night she had asked for something different. So she stayed where she was. Junseo cracked the first egg too hard. Shell pieces fell into the bowl. He picked them out awkwardly with his fingers. He cracked the second egg better. The third one spilled onto the counter. He wiped it with a paper towel, frowning like the counter had personally offended him. He turned on the stove. He turned it all the way up. Elena inhaled slowly through her nose. The twins appeared in the doorway minutes later like small storms. Leah walked in first, rubbing her eyes, hair sticking up slightly on one side. Noah followed, dragging his dinosaur by one arm. Both froze when they saw their father in the kitchen. Where's Mommy? Leah asked automatically. Elena's chest tightened. Junseo turned around, holding a whisk like he had borrowed it from someone else's life. Mommy's resting, he said. I'm making breakfast. Noah stared at him with pure suspicion. You don't cook, Noah said bluntly. I'm learning, Junseo replied. Noah narrowed his eyes as if he needed proof. Junseo poured the eggs into the pan. They sizzled loudly, immediate and aggressive. He did not add butter. He did not lower the heat. He stirred too late, then too fast. Smoke rose. Elena watched his shoulders tense. Leah climbed onto a stool. I want juice, she announced. Okay, Junseo said, still focused on the eggs. He grabbed a cup from the cabinet without thinking. A blue plastic one. He poured juice and placed it in front of Lia like that should solve everything. Lia stared at it. Her face crumpled. Tears came instantly, dramatic and loud. "That's the wrong cup," she cried. Junseo froze, panicked. "It's a cup," he said carefully. "What's wrong with it?" "It's wrong." Lia cried louder. Noah climbed onto the other stool and looked at the cup as if it had committed a crime. "Elena always uses the pink bunny cup," Noah said, shaking his head. Junseo looked helplessly around the kitchen, then looked toward Elena, standing silent in the doorway. His eyes asked for rescue. Elena's body leaned forward slightly, ready to move. Then she stopped. This was what she had asked for. Not perfection. Presence. She kept her voice calm. "What does Lia usually use?" Junseo blinked. "I don't know." Elena nodded, gently but firmly. "Then ask her." Junseo turned back to their daughter, who was crying so hard her shoulders shook. "Lia," he said, lowering his voice. "What cup do you want?" She sniffed loudly. "The pink one. With the bunny." Junseo opened the cabinet and began searching. He moved cups aside, digging deeper, finding ones he had never noticed before. Finally, behind 2 stacked bowls, he found it. Pink. Bunny. Familiar. He poured the juice again, carefully this time, and placed it in front of her. Lia stopped crying immediately, took a sip, and sighed like a queen who had been properly served. Junseo stared at her, shocked by how fast the problem disappeared. Elena felt something unfamiliar in her chest. Not joy, not peace, but a small shift. A crack in the old pattern. Junseo turned back to the eggs. They were ruined, burnt on the edges, rubbery in the middle. He scraped them onto plates anyway, placing them in front of the twins like a man hoping confidence would make food edible. Noah poked his eggs with a fork and made a face. "These eggs are angry," he said. Lia took one bite and frowned politely. "It tastes strong." Junseo looked like he might surrender. "I can make toast," he offered. Noah perked up. "Toast is good." Junseo put bread in the toaster and waited. He made the mistake of starting the toast before fixing the eggs, so by the time the eggs were on the plates, the toast was cold. Elena watched all of it. It was chaos. It was clumsy. It was real. And it was something she had never seen from him before. After breakfast, Junseo helped them get dressed. Liao insisted on a specific shirt. Noah refused socks for 5 minutes until Junseo finally said, "Okay, no socks," and Noah immediately changed his mind and demanded socks. Junseo looked like he was walking through a maze without a map. But he stayed. Days passed. Not magically, not perfectly, but steadily. He woke up earlier. He handled school mornings. He asked questions, sometimes too many. What snack does Noah like? Which book does Liao want before bed? How do I know when they're tired? Elena answered when asked. She stayed quiet when not asked. Every time her hands itched to take over, she reminded herself why she had stopped. He needed to learn. They needed to see him learning. One night, Lia screamed from a nightmare. Elena's body reacted instantly, muscle memory pulling her out of bed before her mind caught up. Junseo's hand touched her arm. "I've got it," he whispered. Elena froze, unsure. Then she lay back down. She listened from the bed as he walked down the hall. She heard his voice in the twins' room, low and gentle. "It's okay," he said. "Daddy's here." Lia's sobs slowed. The sound softened. After a while, silence returned. 10 minutes later, Junseo returned to the bedroom. "She's asleep," he whispered. Elena did not say thank you. She did not praise him. She just nodded, and something inside her loosened slightly. Another night, Elena sat in the laundry room folding clothes when she suddenly began to cry. Quietly at first, then harder. The sound surprised her. She had been holding tears down for so long that they no longer felt natural. Junseo found her there. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't try to fix her. He sat on the floor beside the dryer, his back against the wall, and waited with her in the sound of spinning clothes and humming heat. After a long time, Elena spoke softly. "I get scared," she admitted, "that you'll stop trying the moment life gets busy again." Junseo stared at the floor, his voice quiet. "I'm scared too," he said, "that I'll fail and you'll disappear." There was still no romance. No sudden passion. No dramatic or healed moment. They moved through the days like two people learning a new language slowly, awkwardly, with mistakes and pauses. But he was there, present, consistent, and for the first time in years, Elena began to feel something she had almost forgotten. Not happiness. Not certainty. Just visibility. A small, fragile sense that she was not alone in the room anymore. The safe house sat on the edge of the city, quiet and unremarkable. From the outside, it looked like any other rented home. Beige walls, narrow driveway, trimmed grass that had not been cut recently enough to look cared for, but not neglected enough to draw attention. That was the point. Nothing about it was supposed to stand out. Inside, Kong Minte sat alone at a small kitchen table. The furniture was temporary. Cheap chairs. A table that wobbled slightly if you leaned on it. No decorations. No photos on the walls. Guards rotated outside, unseen but always present. He was allowed food, water, and sleep. Nothing else. No phone calls. No explanations. No timeline. For weeks, Minte had lived inside the same questions, replaying the same moment over and over again. The moment Elena lifted the glass. The moment she drank. The moment she collapsed. He had not slept properly since. When the door opened, he stood immediately. Madame Han Sukja entered alone. No guards followed her inside. She closed the door behind her with calm certainty and set her handbag on the counter as if she were visiting a relative, not confronting a man who had nearly killed his own brother's wife. "Sit," she said. Minte obeyed. She did not rush. She studied him carefully, her eyes sharp, her posture relaxed. This was not an interrogation born of anger. This was something colder, something more deliberate. "Tell me why," Madame Han said. Minte swallowed hard. At first, he tried to speak, but his voice failed him. His hands trembled as he clasped them together on the table. "They threaten my family," he said finally. Madame Han did not react. "They sent photos," he continued, "of my wife, of my son, at the park, at daycare, outside our apartment. They knew our routines. They knew everything." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, hands shaking. He unlocked it and slid it across the table. Madame Han looked down at the screen. Photos, messages, locations, timelines. The proof was undeniable. "They're called the Black Current Group," Minte said. "They want the shipping routes. The contracts Junseo is about to secure. They told me I had 10 days. He looked up at her, eyes wet. "They said either my brother dies, or my family does." Slowly, silence filled the room. "I didn't want to do it," Minte whispered. "But I didn't see another way." Madame Han studied the phone for a long moment before setting it down. "You chose poison at a family dinner," she said. "Why?" Minte closed his eyes. "Because it would look natural," he said. "And because I knew Elena would notice." Madame Han's gaze sharpened. "She always notices," Minte continued, shame pouring from him now. "She sees things before anyone else. She tried to warn Junseo before. About the money. About me. About the irregularities." His voice cracked. "I knew he wouldn't listen to her. He never does. That's how invisible she was. I used that. I used her silence as cover." He opened his eyes and looked directly at Madame Han. "I never thought she would drink it herself," he said. "I thought she would speak up and be dismissed. I thought that would buy me time." Tears streamed down his face. "She was the only person in this family who ever treated me with kindness," he said. "And I almost killed her." Madame Han leaned back slightly in her chair. "You were desperate," she said. "But desperation does not erase responsibility." Minte nodded. "I know." Outside the room, Kong Junseo stood frozen. He had arrived quietly, intending to deliver judgment. Rage. Punishment. Finality. Instead, he had heard everything. He had heard how his neglect created weakness. How Elena's invisibility became a weapon. How his leadership left cracks others could exploit. He opened the door. Minte flinched instinctively, bracing himself. Junseo stepped inside calmly and sat across from his brother. "The Black Current Group is gone," he said evenly. "Your wife and son are safe." Minte stared at him in disbelief. "Why?" he whispered. Junseo's voice tightened. "Because Elena asked me to protect them," he said. "She said your family should not pay for a choice you made under threat." Minte broke down completely. "I don't deserve that mercy," he sobbed. "No," Junseo agreed. "You don't." He paused. "But she does." Junseo folded his hands on the table. "You are done with the syndicate," he said. "Permanently. You will never return. You will never contact anyone from this life again." Minte nodded rapidly. "I understand. You're moving to Portland," Junseo continued. "New identity. Legitimate work. No shortcuts. No protection beyond what a normal life gives you. Madame Han watched closely. You will live quietly, Junseo said. You will raise your son. You will carry this guilt without letting it destroy anyone else. Minte lowered his head. Thank you, he whispered. Junseo stood. As he turned to leave, he paused. This mercy is not mine, he said. It belongs to my wife. Do not ever forget that. 3 days later, Minte left the city with his family. No goodbye dinners. No forgiveness speeches. Just a quiet departure at dawn. A rented car. A few bags. A future stripped of power, but still intact. Elena did not go to the safe house. She did not need to. Her choice had already been made. That night, she sat at home, folding laundry slowly, feeling something unfamiliar settle inside her. Peace. Not because justice had been served perfectly, but because cruelty had been interrupted. She had nearly died. And in surviving, she had chosen what kind of woman she would be. Not invisible. Not vengeful. But powerful in the quiet way that changes outcomes long after the moment has passed. 7 months later, the house no longer felt like a place Elena crossed paths through. It felt lived in. Morning light filled the kitchen most days before anyone else woke up. The twins moved through the space with ease now, their laughter echoing off walls that once felt heavy with silence. Shoes were still misplaced. Backpacks were still forgotten by the door. But there was rhythm where there used to be strain. Kong Junseo woke earlier than he used to. Not every day. Not perfectly. But often enough that it mattered. Some mornings he handled breakfast entirely on his own. The eggs were better now. Still not perfect, but edible. The juice cups were right more often than wrong. He remembered that Lia liked her toast cut into triangles, and that no one needed a 5-minute warning before transitions. Elena noticed these things quietly. She did not praise him. She did not reward him. She let consistency speak for itself. Junseo still ran the syndicate. That part of his life had not disappeared. Meetings still happened. Calls still came at odd hours. Problems still needed solving. But something had shifted in how he handled it. He came home. He made time. He stopped treating family like an afterthought. On nights when work threatened to spill over into everything, he chose differently. He sat at the table instead of the office. He listened to stories about school that made no sense to him but mattered deeply to his children. The twins noticed. Lia grew bolder. She asked more questions. She laughed louder. Noah stopped hovering at Elena's side and started pulling his father into games, into conversations, into bedtime routines. "Daddy, watch this," became a common phrase. Junseo always watched. Elena felt the change in subtle ways. In the way her presence was acknowledged without her having to demand it. In the way her opinions were asked for, not as a formality, but as something valued. In the way silence between them no longer felt like neglect but rest. She was not fixed. She was not healed in a neat, cinematic way. But she was no longer erased. On a cool evening in early autumn, they returned to Echelon Prime. The same restaurant. The same private room. The same mahogany table polished to perfection. The same chandelier casting soft golden light. The seating was the same too. Elena on the left. Junseo at the center. Madame Han Sukja on the right. The difference was not visible to anyone who did not know where to look. The wine arrived. The sommelier poured carefully, evenly, without apology or delay. The liquid settled into the glass, deep red and steady. No shimmer. No distortion. Elena watched it briefly. Then she let her gaze lift. Junseo noticed. He noticed without being prompted. He reached for his phone out of habit, then stopped. He set it face down on the table and slid it away from his place setting. Madame Han saw this. She said nothing. The conversation began with simple things. Food. Weather. The twins' school projects. Junseo listened. He asked questions. He stayed present. Elena felt the familiar tension try to rise in her chest, and then fall away. When the wine was poured into her own glass, she did not hesitate. She lifted it calmly and took a sip. It tasted exactly as it should. Safe. Warm. Real. Halfway through the meal, Junseo reached across the table. 19 inches. This time, the distance felt small. He took Elena's hand in his, openly, without hesitation. It was not dramatic. It was not an announcement. It was simply true. Elena looked at him, surprised despite herself. He met her gaze. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. Not distracted. Not rushed. Present. She considered the question. "I am," she said honestly. I'm here. He squeezed her hand gently, and they returned to their meal, fingers still loosely intertwined. Madame Han observed the moment with careful attention. The shift was subtle, but unmistakable. Her son was not performing. He was choosing. After dinner, as they stood to leave, Elena paused by the table. She rested her hand lightly against its polished surface. This was where it had happened, where she had nearly disappeared, where she had been unseen even as her body failed. She did not feel fear. She felt clarity. Survival had not made her stronger in the way people liked to romanticize. It had made her honest. It had stripped away the illusion that endurance alone was noble. She had chosen to live. And then she had chosen how. Outside, the night air was cool and crisp. Junseo walked beside her, not ahead, not behind. Just beside. The twins were at home with the nanny, already asleep. Tomorrow would bring school, routines, responsibilities. Life. Elena did not know what the future held. She knew old patterns could return. She knew change required constant effort. But she also knew this. She was no longer invisible. Not because someone had saved her. Because she had refused to disappear. Elena Cross had survived poison, yes. But more than that, she had survived 7 years of being quietly erased. And in demanding to be seen, not through sacrifice, but through truth, she had changed the shape of her life. Power, she had learned, was not always loud. Sometimes it looked like staying. Sometimes it looked like speaking. Sometimes it looked like sitting at the same table that once nearly killed you, and claiming your place there anyway. And this time, she was seen. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.